Hello, welcome to Olympia Pop Rocks, your favorite podcast. We have an exciting interview with pop-punk folk musician Spoonboy, aka David Combs, who is in town to record a side project with Erica Frias of Reviver. Sadly, but also kind of funny, Spoonboy is breaking up with himself. If you're on the East Coast, he will be playing his last Spoonboy show June 4th. If you can make that, non-local listeners, I highly recommend it. But before that, Guire and I talk about the British television show Black Mirror. Yes, we do spoil the show if you have not seen it. Stop listening to the podcast and go to Netflix and you can watch it now, or just listen to us ruin it for you. So, I wanted to talk about Black Mirror, the British TV show. And we first both heard about it from Hello Internet, one of my favorite podcasts. I think that Black Mirror is the best TV show that I've seen in a long while, but it's hard to say because I don't actually watch TV shows. Like, I've never seen Lost.
Yeah, he didn't watch Breaking Bad. He read the Wikipedia. It's horrible.
Just for one season, but Starship Galactica, I never saw any of that one, and I hear it's just amazing. Everyone says, oh, blah, 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 it's the best TV show ever. Like, a lot of the TV shows that people have said have been the best TV shows ever, I have not actually seen. Mostly because I know if I watch some of it, I'll want to watch all of it, and life is too precious.
Well, let me ask you a question, though. Like, you love talking with people about common experiences. Like, we're about to talk about Black Mirror, and it's going to be very exciting because we've both watched it. We watched some of the episodes together, and you'd be able to participate. You know, like some of these things, like Breaking Bad, that was a national thing that was happening. Like, you can talk to people across all different walks of life about these. And yes, you are wasting, in quotation marks, some part of your life on being wildly entertained by some of the best, media ever produced. And you love talking with people. What's the damage?
Yeah. Well, my preference for art in general is for intelligent tragedies. That's the art that I'm drawn to, is usually like a bitter tea. And I don't want to be like, oh, I'm just above that kind of stuff. It's just simply like Game of Thrones in no way has been like, oh, I should check that out. That seems like something I would like. In no way has it been that way.
Totally has drama. Totally has the bitter pill things.
Yeah. It's just so much of a sweeter of a life to live otherwise. Like, really, like playing the guitar in my room seems to enrich me and makes me better at life than watching Breaking Bad, which was an excellent TV show. I mean, it was fantastic, really. But life is too sweet.
I'm talking about the conversations.
Yeah.
You still haven't addressed that. You love connecting with people through conversation. Like we're just about to do. We're just about to talk about Black Mirror.
I get what you're saying, but like we went out drinking with some of your friends, and then there was a friend of yours who was really into Shakespeare plays,
yes,
which I'm really into, and TV adaptations of Shakespeare plays. Catherine, yes. And that was so rewarding for me to talk about because there was a shared interest.
Right.
And if I am just interested in getting people to talk, I know how to do that. How many kids do you have? What do you do for a living? And that sometimes can be very interesting, absolutely. But to find something that we have in common and sharing that is what I really want. Like, I don't want just to have them.
You're just arguing for watching a thing. So then you watch a thing and then you can find something that you really... I mean, do you think you're going to pull the exact same thing out of Breaking Bad that, like, let's say I will? No. You are going to be connecting over something that is something that was worth your time to watch in the first place, and something that you're going to be able to talk about what that brings up for you in the human experience. And that is exactly what you just said you would want. You understand how to talk about people. You can bring up their kids, bring up all this mundane stuff, or you can talk about widely consumed piece of media,
which I might think is not actually that good.
You might not think that, but you could.
Which seems to be the case. Like I could just speak to people. Wow. Remember that one episode of Friends where that one thing happened? Yeah, and then that other episode of Friends where other things, like that is just as valid, which is like, I could play that game. I mean, if you want to talk about episodes of The Simpsons.
Yes, it's just as valid, but it isn't. Breaking Bad is better than Friends.
Yes, absolutely. And if there were another TV show that were as quality as Breaking Bad, such as Black Mirror is, like such a high quality
Is
TV
it just
show.
Because these things take long? I mean, Black Mirror,
absolutely.
You're 6 episodes.
Mm-hmm. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
Very manageable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no.
A play, 3 hours, you're done. A movie, same thing.
My main fear of watching Game of Thrones is that I will love it and have to watch every single episode, which is why I avoided Lost. And again, like, just life is too sweet.
Okay, you're wrong on the TV thing. Moving on.
Wrong? How am I wrong? My point is that...
are valid.
I mean, my perspective is I don't want to watch them.
Which was your favorite Black Mirror episode?
My favorite or the best?
Your favorite?
Episode 2 of season 1, 50 million merits or whatever it
50
was
million
called.
credit, yeah.
Merits, yeah.
Yeah, merits.
That was the most pleasing to watch and the most interesting to think about, with none of the sadness that many of the other episodes left me with. They left it in a bitter spot for sure. I guess we should actually say before we
Spoilers.
Spoiler alert, that we're going to talk about whatever we want to talk about these episodes. And if you have not seen this series, you should
Pause
not. Yeah, pause it and go to Wikipedia.
Read all about it.
Yeah,
then
read
come
all
back.
about it. That's the exact same thing as watching it, is just reading the plot points.
So what was the best episode?
Well, the best ones absolutely were the ones that I walked in not knowing anything about. So that would be the last episode of season 1 and season 2, episode 2.
White Bear.
White Bear, which I knew nothing about, and I purposely avoided when I watched it on Netflix seeing the description of it, just because I just wanted to know nothing. Walking into an episode where the person's like, "What's going on?" and you having to piece it together with them was so satisfying, and so like the points of like them pointing the camera at her made that much more mysterious and like scary.
Oh, with all the spectators pointing the cell phones at her.
Yeah,
and
like-
nobody's helping her.
Yeah, if that were set up, like, and then I just walked into it, then it would just lose the effect of it. Like, it really, like, if you have not seen Black Mirror, you should not listen to this. You should just go and watch it.
Yeah, we said that. We don't need to say it again.
I do need to say it again, because that really is like, not only don't listen to this, but don't read anything about it.
Yeah, it's just better not to know anything about going into a movie, and you
Yeah.
could apply it to a TV show, and it's just true.
Which is how it was for me for Birdman, and for everyone I showed Birdman to. Like, they'd be like, "Oh, I don't know anything about this." I'm like, "Yes, excellent. That's the best way to watch this."
Nice.
You said that episode 2, or White Bear.
Episode 2, season 2, for me, like, fucked me up. After watching that, I didn't want to watch the last episode. The whole feeling that it left me with was so dark. Like, it's a woman is convicted of having been an accomplice in the abduction and murder of a child, which is like already off the bat horrifying, right?
Yeah.
It's like one of the worst things like that you could imagine, right? Like murdering a child, that's horrible. But the punishment for this woman is to kind of live in this recurrent hellish nightmare, which she's being hunted by seemingly psychopathic people bent on not only killing her, but torturing her beforehand, while other people film and observe her and film her with smartphones and don't help her. And then in the end, it's shown to be this kind of like amusement park theme, where the attraction for the general public is getting to watch this woman suffer through this time and time again, and then everything is just reset the next day. Like, her memory is wiped away in a way that seems damaging for her psyche and painful, like physically painful for her, and then she just has to relive the same horror again. It's given like a more powerful punch, because it does seem that society is obsessed with watching people's personal tragedies, and we like that. There's definitely in general a appetite for that kind of media, and one of the maybe the and not the earliest form, but like something that hops out at me right away is watching Cops. I mean, that show is purely this same thing-ish, where it's just a show that is about watching the misery of others and mostly marginalized communities.
Right.
Just like brushing up against the law. But the reason why you watch that is so that you can see the cops brutalizing people. And I'm not even anti-cop. Like, I believe that there's actual function for like police and society, you know. But Cops as a show is definitely feeds on that appetite in American society. Or all these videos that are on, I could keep going, I'm like really monologuing, but videos where people are videotaping with their phones something that's going on that they could actually positively help what's going on, but instead they're videotaping it, like a fight or whatever awfulness, but instead people are just being this passive observer. And it's definitely a comment on that, or I felt it was.
So why did it actually upset you, though?
I don't know. I think it was because I ultimately felt horrible for the victim, or who I thought was the victim in it, who was the accomplice in murdering a child. So I was feeling that she was being done wrong in a way that just was so sad. And the idea that was going to go on perpetually until she dies of starvation. I mean, they just kind of reset it, and then it went again.
Yeah.
She was not fed, or, You know what I mean? There was
Yeah.
no, so I assume that it just goes until she could no longer do this, and then they just let her die, or they shoot her in the head. You know what? There's it's not going to end well for her. So it's just like the brutality of the way that they dealt with. Was it ambiguous that she did it at all?
She filmed while her boyfriend killed the kid.
Killed the kid. Yeah. So that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
You can't film a kid being murdered by your lover.
You can't do that and not be put in this futuristic.
Yeah, you
theme
can't do
park.
that and not expect at least this. So. And it was just such a bleak world. There was nothing in that world that made me feel like I would want to be any part of it. And I'm trying to think if that's true for any of the... Oh, yeah, there is. I mean, like for the one called The Entire Future of You, or The Entire History of You, the one where everyone can record all of their...
Right. Yeah.
Anything they see and hear is all recorded via these implants, if you have one of the implants, but almost everybody has the implant. At least in that one, I could imagine, like, what if I was in that reality? And then, yes, there's some like horrifying implications, but also I could be like, well, I'd probably enjoy a lot of that, you know? Whereas this, like, nothing about the little slice of that world they showed you was anything but horrifying for me. What did you think about it? You just saw it last night.
Well, first of all, I would say almost every other episode was a look at a technology that does not exist but could exist, and then seeing how people react. And every technology seems to suggest that people are exactly the same, that politicians would maneuver for their benefits, husbands would be jealous, and people would be greedy and selfish when they're normally in that situation as it is.
Things that make people feel nostalgic for a lost love get stuffed into an attic, like a
Exactly, yeah.
Android or a photo book of your relationship with that person.
Yeah, just like the life we live now. In this episode, what's it called? A white bear?
Yeah.
Was the most unlikely portrayal of humanity as we see it, because I don't think that people would actually go for that cruel of a torture, even in that instance where they would be like, oh, let's make a theme park and torture this woman.
Do you think that it's like a part comment on people who want to watch executions? Because people, I mean, that used to be a public thing and people watched that.
Right.
And I'd say if there were public executions today, people would watch the shit out of it.
Yeah, there would be, there'd be
People
like
would
Super
show
Bowl
up
commercials.
yeah, people would show up to Times Square, or not Times Square, but the public square for that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It does speak to that part of humanity, which I do not share. I would not want to watch that. And there's probably some people, I mean, the reason why that does not happen is because there is such a, I don't know if a majority, but a strong part of the American populace, if not like the Western populace, who finds that horrific and would create a huge stink if they're like, no, let the people watch the executions. It's fine. Even if someone killed your wife, and that person is convicted, like, you can go in and watch them executed. Is there execution in Washington?
I don't think that there is a death penalty in Washington State, but I do know that is like the family can watch it. There can be like a few people from the media there. But there is some spectator options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not like a popcorn crowd. Like, it's like they feel like they were affected by the murder. They'll allow them in there, and like that's acceptable. And like, obviously nothing. I have nothing to actually say except for that is something that is, people do that, and that is allowed. But if they were to televise it and like have ads, like, people would create such a stink about it that they're like, it's like, okay, we can't do that. Even though there was a portion of the people who would think that's okay, or that was fucking awesome. But it's such a divisive issue. Divisive.
I think either way is acceptable.
Well, right on. Good job, Jimmy Joe.
Divisive sounds, I think, more intelligent.
Oh, well, that's what I'll say from now on. Because you know how many times a day I say that, so now. It's such a divisive issue that people just avoid it. Like, there's some issues that there's such a conflict in, that in our society that we're like, well, since so many people are against it and some people are for it, we're just not going to do it.
Yeah, maybe that's why I felt so sad about it, is it was just showed an aspect of life that I don't think about very much. Because like maybe if they did a well done, as with the production style of Black Mirror, and it was just about how people are convicted with varying degrees of evidence in this in a fictitious judicial system, and then stuck into a cage for like years and years, like where they're mostly just languishing with like zero improvement. And then like if they are released and are blackballed from like holding any sort of meaningful work, where their only option is to get back into the same system that like broke their life in general, I'd be like, oh, that's a whole thing. But that's like our system.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
exactly. A lot of the episodes really felt like it's like, oh, that's not that different than how we live.
I think that's definitely one of the things that I loved about it, is that it was just a few shades more hyperbolic than the way things are now. It wasn't like, oh, I could never imagine that reality. You're like, oh, that'll probably be like 5 years from now.
Right.
Do you think that you would get an implant in your body that would augment in the entire History of You episode? People had this device where they could kind of record everything they saw on audio. Do you think you would go so far as to get technology implanted in your body?
I don't think that I would be comfortable with that today. There's no precedent. Like, I've heard of science fiction, futurism, people be like, oh, eventually people will get implants for their eyes instead of glasses. Things to improve your hearing. I guess hearing aids is like an example that people use that sort of technology now, but it's so removed from my life. My immediate response was like, no, I wouldn't want to do that.
Let's say there was a procedure and it was like not painful, or they just numb with lidocaine in the like part of your ear, and they just put something that's just underneath your skin. But what it did is just what your earbuds do. And it was completely invisible, so you didn't have to feel embarrassed like people do with like the Bluetooth telephone thing in their ear where you look like an idiot.
It's funny, like my immediate response is no.
My immediate response is yes. I'd be like, I would want that. Yes, I'll sign up.
Well, my perspective is if everyone started doing it, then I probably would too. It's like, oh, people are doing that. I guess it's okay.
Yeah.
This episode of Olympia Pop Rocks is brought to you by the Blue Heron Bakery. Since 1977, the Blue Heron Bakery has been providing Olympia with delicious breads, granola, cookies, pastries, seeds, coffees, and so much more. My favorite product right now at the Blue Heron is the gluten-free apple pecan coffee cake. It is delicious and you will love it. I love taking a break from my day and enjoying a fresh Americano at the Blue Heron, enjoying the apple pecan coffee cake or any of their wonderful products. I always find myself thinking, now this is living. The Blue Heron Bakery is located at 4935 Mud Bay Road Northwest on the beautifully majestic shores of Mud Bay. Blue Heron also has a booth at Olympia's Farmers Market and sells their products at both Olympia food co-ops and other fine food retailers. When you stop by the Blue Heron Bakery, say hi for Jemmy Joe and I, and let them know that you heard about them from Olympia Pop Rocks. Now on with our interview with Spoonboy.
You are Spoonboy, aka David.
David Combs.
David Combs. Welcome to Olympia Pop Rocks.
Thanks for having me.
No, very glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
When is the first time you went to Olympia?
Let's
Let's
back
skip
it up
that.
even
Yeah.
more.
When was the first time you heard of Olympia as a cultural aspect?
I probably read about Olympia as a place where music happened when I was a teenager, reading about like Bikini Kill and bands like that. Mostly, growing up in DC and being part of the punk scene, there's a lot of documentation about it. I got into the punk scene a few years after Riot Girl was happening, but already then there were it was being documented, and like that book Dance of Days came out at some point and I read it. And so it would talk about how there's kind of a relationship between the DC punk scene and the Olympia punk scene.
Right, Bikini Kill eventually moved there, or yeah,
I think Bratmobile too. And then there was some kind of thing where like Nation of Ulysses, Ian Sinonius would come hang out in Olympia, or they had some kind of close-knit connection.
they're not. They're a DC band.
Nope, they're a
No?
DC band.
Oh,
Yeah,
good
they
to
were on
know.
Discord.
Huh.
Yeah, and then I, from there, found out about Beat Happening and K Records, and those are my first memories of reading about Olympia.
So at some point you came.
At some point I
This
came here,
direction.
and
On tour?
On tour. Now that I'm trying to remember when that would have been, because I think I came to Seattle once or twice before I came to Olympia. Yeah, I think it would have been like 2004 or 5.
Would that be with the Max Levine project or just Spoonboy?
I think I came playing solo acoustic. I was on tour with Your Heart Breaks, and we did like a string of shows around the Northwest, and we played a show here. I remember actually being interviewed for Pirate Radio, I think it was that time, by Ross, whose last name I forget now.
Cowman.
Yeah.
I thought it was Ross the Boss. So that's not his actual name? No. Okay.
Pretty sure that was that trip.
Nice.
But, I've gone on a lot of tours, and they've gotten blurry.
Hard to remember.
Yeah.
So are you here now recording for Somnia, or
Yeah.
so what's that project laid out for everyone?
Okay, so at some point, Reviver came through DC. Reviver, Olympia punk band.
We actually interviewed Kevin for our first podcast. So.
Yeah, Kevin, internationally renowned vegan chef, filmmaker, and drummer. I already knew Maddie from the East Coast, but got to know everybody in that band. And at some point, Max Levine Ensemble and Reviver were playing a show together, and I was talking to Erica about dreams. Erica, one of the guitarists and singers from Reviver, talked about the phenomenon of hearing songs in your dream. Like, you go to a show in your dream and you see this band, and you're like, wow, that's a great band. And then you wake up and you're like, wait, that's just from my subconscious. That's my song.
I wrote that, yeah.
And we're talking about that phenomenon, and then kind of like other things that are interesting about dreams, like dream synchronicity and lucid dreaming. And we had the idea that to do a project.
Is dream synchronicity like where you have two people have the same dream?
Yeah.
Oh.
I remember that from Fraggle Rock.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I would very much like to find that episode.
Nice pull.
I recently discovered there's this '80s movie called Dream a Little Dream.
Oh sure, it has one of the Corys in it.
It has both of the Corys.
Both. It's a Corey film.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, nice.
It's about this old man who wants to figure out how to go into the dream world so that he can live forever. That's part of the premise. And I was like, this is gold. This is going to be a sample. Like, it's a good movie. Yeah, we were talking about that, and we came up with an ambitious idea, which we have not quite fulfilled. But the idea was to try to, like, explore dream synchronicity, try to train ourselves to be able to lucid dream, see if we could have a dream synchronicity where we met together and wrote a song.
Oh, whoa.
That's
not
a
happened.
good
project.
That's not happened.
Yeah,
But
very
We kind of be better at lucid dreaming.
I practiced for a long time. That was almost 3 years ago that we had that conversation and decided to start this project. So then at that time I was really practicing hard, but I've not gotten very good at it. I've gotten barely lucid dreams, but I do still remember songs from my dreams. We started this project just as like a long distance songwriting project, and as of last year we had like 5 songs just from the various times that I'd come through and spent a little time hanging out here.
Was the first of which Double Life?
Yes, the first of which was Double Life.
Because at that time it wasn't even Somnia, right? It was.
Yeah.
I first saw that because Kevin made this fantastic video with you guys.
That was so fun. It was like I had been doing some shows around the Northwest, and Erica was playing. We were playing shows together, and like one day we had a day off because we couldn't get into Canada because of my legal record, which is a whole other story.
There's a follow-up question.
And so we're like, well, what are we doing? We went boating with Clyde from Your Heart Breaks, and then we sat down and wrote a song, which was Double Life, and then went back to Olympia the next day and basically asked Maddie and Jeff if they wanted to just record the song really quick, because like at that house they have like all these amazing musicians, and Joey, who records bands and plays in a bunch of bands, has a studio set up there. So we're just like, let's just do this. And then we're like, the next day we're like, let's make a music video. It was a cool few days.
Oh, nice. So all that, the video being over from the time the song was written, was under a week?
Yeah, I mean, it was shot within 2 days.
Oh, nice.
It was
That's the way to do it.
wrote the song, recorded it the next day, made the video the next day.
Awesome.
Fast forward a few years later, we're like, well, we should actually try to put these songs down, record them decently. And so I flew in last week. We wrote 4 new songs, relearned all the old songs, and are recording them right now.
And it's like a dream. It's kind of like the dream team, because let's go over the people and the instruments. Your
Personnel.
guitar.
I'm playing guitar and singing.
Personnel.
Erica's playing guitar and singing. Maddie from Reviver also is playing bass. Joseph, who plays in Agatha, is playing drums. Joey is playing keyboards. So
The Jester.
The Joester, yes.
Nice.
And we recorded it with, not with Joey this time, we recorded it with Matt Busher.
And you guys recorded at his studio.
Yes.
Yeah.
Neandra Hall.
Nice. Are the 2 demos that are up right now on your Bandcamp recorded by Matt as well?
No, those are from demos we made with Joey.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Our original idea.
How are they sounding?
How is it sounding so
Yeah.
far? Great. It's really
Nice.
exciting. It's really fun.
What instrument did you start on?
Did I
Or
start
like,
playing?
how do you even get into music to begin with?
I've recently realized that I don't give my mom enough credit, like, when I think about that, which is, like, my mom was a songwriter and wrote, like, probably a couple hundred songs on piano. So I was always around that. Like, I was always around her playing piano and writing songs, and occasionally she'd write kid songs and let me help write the lyrics and stuff like that.
Nice.
So I think that's, like, my first exposure to songwriting was just having that in my family. And then at some point I had a neighbor who came over with an acoustic guitar and was like, here, you need to learn this. I mean, I think his exact words were like, you got to learn how to play guitar, you're never going to get any chicks or something like that, something stupid. But whatever his intention was, I was like, yeah, it seems like something I should try, and still the main instrument that I play.
And then when did you do self-recording early on, or?
No, not really. I've definitely messed around with like lo-fi demos, but my first band was a band called the Max Levine Ensemble that I'm still in, pop punk band from DC. Been going for, I guess, 14 years now.
Wow.
It's funny that I hesitated because it's really just like me being like, what year is it? Okay, it's 2014. It's been 14 years.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. We've what was the question?
I was just wondering if, because you started playing acoustic guitar at 12, so then I was wondering about when you started getting into recording.
Well, yeah, so Max Levine Ensemble started when I was 17, and probably that year we recorded our first record at like our high school's like music room. There's like a little bit of a studio that they recorded the a cappella choir in.
Nice.
That was the only function for that studio, but we got our math teacher who was interested in it and was like occasionally playing keyboards with us. And yeah, I recorded in all kinds of different places since then, sometimes by myself, but usually at different people's studios, or a lot of like people who are kind of like starting out studios is maybe like the most common thing, like people who are still wanting to give me a deal because like they're gaining experience recording, which is cool.
Yeah.
Because you gain experience along with them.
Sure.
So you have a lot of releases you put out on Planet X Records.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like they just do Kickstarters to put out records now. Like, but,
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I'd say like probably the last bunch of records that Chris Clavin, who runs that record label, did were Kickstarter funded. I think that he's kind of trying to step back from that record label. My impression is he wants to do compilations maybe once a year. So I just recorded a song for a compilation that's coming out at some point. Just solo, me and acoustic guitar.
Was that one called?
I don't remember.
You don't know. Okay.
Oh, it might be like It Came from Planet X.
Oh, yeah.
I have a problem that I think a lot of people who've been touring a lot by the time they get into their 30s have, which is like I have so many names of people, bands, records, like in my head that I can't really keep them all straight.
Yeah, I noticed that the Papas had a acoustic version as well as the full band version, and it immediately made me think of the Mountain Goats who do that with their records
yeah.
too. And also, I thought that record was very reminiscent of the Sunset Tree. Would that be an inspiration for that album?
I wasn't thinking about the Sunset Tree as an inspiration, but I definitely listened to my share of Mountain Goats when I was younger. Actually, I used to live with Chris Clavin from Planet X Records, who we were just talking about, and he loves the Mountain Goats. And that was actually kind of the death of my Mountain Goats fandom. Was like he just had every single record of theirs, which is hundreds of songs.
Yeah, lots and lots and lots.
And he'd have it on his iPod on shuffle, and it was just like constantly Mountain Goats playing. So actually Sunset Tree was around this time that I stopped following the Mountain Goats, though I remember being impressed by that record, and I do see the similarity because he's like definitely going into like his childhood
Relationship
experiences.
with his stepfather
Yeah.
particularly.
Mm-hmm. And the Papas, that record is like about exploring, you know, your socialization as a young person, and particularly somebody who socialized as male, and like figuring out like where the kind of relationships with our fathers, father figures, other models of masculinity that we're exposed to, and like how that shapes us in many ways, but like often problematic ways that are worth like being deconstructed.
Yeah, mostly by absence, by most people's experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, absence and a few memories of shitty experiences.
Yeah. That's definitely my experience.
I was talking to a friend of mine who her father just died and she hadn't had any interaction with him, and then my friend commented that she feels that empathy is a learned experiences, and she was able to forgive him. He just didn't learn that skill that I was raised with on how to empathize with people and relate to them, which made me think a lot about your record in general, which I've been listening to a lot lately. And I was wondering, do you feel like you were raised with empathy? And do you think that's a learned trait?
Yeah, I mean, I do think so. I can't say that some people have more or less proclivities towards being empathetic, outside of how they're raised. But I do think it's very much about socialization and how we're taught to like understand each other and hear other people's experiences. And like as far as talking about how I was raised, it's really that's kind of a hard question to think about. I was raised with, in a household that was just my mother and my sister. Sometimes I think that I, was exposed to less of a masculine presence growing up. In some ways, I'm very thankful for that, because I see the way masculinity is constructed teaches men to kind of shut themselves off from themselves. That's totally a roadblock to learning empathy.
Right.
I think what you were saying about that kind of like non-empathetic masculine model hopefully being generational, like I think there is some hope in that you have a lot more people than ever before in our culture anyways who are like conscious of the kind of destructive elements of masculinity, trying to consciously raise their kids differently, and that you see more of that, more space for that in pop culture as well, and media that we consume. But at the same time, like the old models of masculinity in many places are very much alive.
It seems now there's just like an option to escape that. Like when I think of punk rock, like for me, my experience, like most of the men involved in punk rock are like the little brother whose dad wasn't around. And it's like they got involved with punk rock, and like that's what you can do if you're not like a tough dude. Like it's so weird to me that occasionally punk is like presented as like these macho guys. Like that's not been my experience at all. Much more feminine guys. And like,
I mean, I agree with you, like that the kind of punk that I like to surround myself with, a less macho, like more feminist informed kind of space. But, that's not at all true in most places, like, exemplified by not only the kind of riot girl thing of in the 90s, like that women in the scene felt like they needed to push back against extremely male dominated space, but it's women and queer people and trans people like pushing back against the like and the like hegemonic masculinity of the scene, you know. But I don't know, it's a very complicated thing to think about.
Yeah. Amity, my friend, actually put forth the idea that the masculine idea of not expressing emotions is like this generational thing, and she has a young boy, and she's hoping that when he's an adult that he won't have to deal with that, and like she definitely doesn't feel that with her husband, and I don't feel that with myself either.
You didn't even have empathy with your twin. I mean, like you didn't.
When I was a kid,
Yeah.
uh
Or was it just free for all? Even
no,
with,
I would
against
actually
Michael?
say that my empathy towards him has grown mostly in the last like 10 years. Like as adults and relating to each other. But we were pretty callous and like unfeeling towards each other, like just the way that brothers are, maybe. I don't know. But most of our like deep love that we experience with each other now is actually based in the last 10 years, but we're like bonded from the years before that.
I see.
Yeah. So Spoonboy writes from a political perspective. Do you feel that you are politically engaged?
Yeah, I mean, I was at Ferguson protests in DC recently. I think of myself as a political person. I think about politics a lot. I think these days it's mostly expressed through music and just through conversations and writing and stuff like that, more so than any more tangible activism, just because of like time management and like needing to work and needing to by making music of worth. I think so anyways, that like is like valuable to other people.
When you say writing, like songwriting, lyrics writing, that kind of thing, or do you do writing as well?
Blogs and stuff like that as well. Haven't done that much of that recently, but yeah, mostly songwriting these days.
We had talked about a little bit before we actually started rolling, like what are you doing with electronic music? We were talking about
You had a MIDI controller, so I was...
yeah.
I'm still learning, but I like am unabashedly a pop music fan and would like to understand how that music's produced. I've been learning the the program Logic and messing around with MIDI keyboard and having a pretty good time doing that.
Yeah, it's fun.
But it's like a new instrument, like learning.
Like several new instruments. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, not only the keyboard, but like just like wrapping your head about how music is produced in that way. It's like very different from the kind of more singer-songwriter, sit down with a guitar kind of style of music that I've been doing since I was 12 or whatever. But
Although I've seen you do it in reverse with a video that you can watch on YouTube with Starships, which was very well done, just on acoustic guitar.
Oh, thank you.
And a floor tom.
Kevin's brilliant at that.
But yeah, Kevin held that video down for me. If you haven't seen it, go to YouTube.
Yeah, that's
check
a
it
really
out.
good video.
We're very, very cool.
Yeah, that was me, a couple members of Reviver, and the British folk punk band Onsend. And I think that all of us agree that it's the most popular thing any of us have ever done.
Oh, really?
Like Erica was saying, she's like, Reviver will be on tour in Germany, and somebody will like shout out Starships. Like somebody just posted on my Instagram that they hope Starships is on the new Somnia record.
But then when you see that, you really see like, oh, like that's actually a simple guitar song.
Mm-hmm.
So who do you like in the mainstream? Who are your pop star favorites?
Right now,
Taylor Swift.
I love Taylor Swift. Yes, Taylor Swift. Like I saw her on the Red Tour. It's one of the best shows I've ever been to. I think she's a great songwriter. A pretty interesting figure in the music world right now. Sia put out an amazing record this year. Is like a mind-blowing songwriter. Interviews with her talking about writing songs for other people like Rihanna and Beyonce. Like, and she's just like, yeah, I just kind of sat down and did it in 15 minutes and sent it off. You know, they're like, what? Beyonce made a great record this year.
Robin has a recent EP out. I don't know
Yeah.
if you're into Robin.
I love Robin. I haven't totally absorbed the collaboration record with the band whose name I'm not sure how to pronounce.
Forget their name. There were 2 songs on it I really liked.
Yeah.
But I was just, I just want more material from Robin. Like, do another album.
Oh yeah, there's like that Body Talk record is fantastic.
Are you gonna make it just a pure pop record? Is that something you think you would do?
Not a Spoonboy, but I would like to at some point start a pop project. But like I was saying, it's like learning a new instrument, so it's probably gonna be a couple years before I'm proficient at it. You know,
Take some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were translating one of Jamil's songs into the electronic world so that I could play with it there. And I was like, I could not figure out this song and how to put it down. And he's like, oh, this is a pickup. And I was like, oh, there's a pickup. Okay, we're just going to cut that out. Like, so much stuff like that was like, what would make it real interesting on like a stringed instrument? Like, let's simplify this down to like 2.
Yeah, boil it down.
Yeah. 2 notes. That's all we need.
It's a different way of looking at songs, and sometimes 2 notes is all you need.
Yeah. I remember
that's a thing that like the times that I've like sat down with pop songs that I like from the radio and just learned them on acoustic guitar. Sometimes you're like, wow, it really is just 2 chords all the way through, or it is just 4 chords all the way through. Like,
yeah, I've had that moment where I was like, oh, the verse is just G.
Yeah.
Like the whole verse. Like what is going on with the music is just 1 note.
yeah,
And I was like, that, but I'll be like,
but it's
that's a
interesting
brilliant-
rhythmically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a brilliant verse. And you know, the melody isn't just doing 1 note.
Yeah.
But yeah, the less that's going on kind of with the arrangement on a certain level, then opens up like the singer to just do whatever.
So when you write songs for Spoonboy, it's not just like 3 chords. Like I've seen some like cleverness in the progression. Is that intentional or just like your musical habits?
Probably at this point it's musical habits. I think there was a time, maybe more with Max Levine Ensemble, where I was like, I'd want to just like write songs that are counterintuitive but still catchy, and that might have been a little more intentional. Max Levine Ensemble did a record called OK Smarty Pants, which is like, I think you can hear most of that sort of thing, where I'm just always like throwing a half step where it wants to be a whole step, you know, like things like that, but still like disrupt the melody around it. But now I think it's just a habit.
Do you just like sing songs and then figure out the guitar parts later on?
Yeah, that's often how I do it.
Interesting.
I mean, very often I'm playing chords and come up with something, but like when I do write a song around a melody, like I like to sit back after I've gotten one part of a song and imagine what happens next. maybe like let it just kind of like step out of the box a little bit and then let the chords follow it there.
That's a cool way to do it.
Yeah, I like to do it, and it's funny, like Spoonboy being a solo project that also sometimes is a band, so I'm like often teaching people the songs, and they're like, oh, it sounded pretty simple, but you're kind of just doing a bunch of random chords at this part, and I'm like, yep,
Yeah.
yep, that's it. Sounds simple, but it's not always. Sometimes it is.
Where do you sing when you're just singing by yourself to figure out the songs? Like
Where?
Yeah.
Some of the best times, I think, are like riding my bike or going for a walk. And it's been nice since I've had like a smarter phone that I can like record like those things done. Because a lot of the time it would just be like come up with filler lyrics so that like if I forget the melody, I'll remember the lyrics and the cadence, and then maybe the melody will come back. I'd still often just completely forget something, but now I just have all these like really weird voice memos. Like I have one that's one that's like labeled "Do Me in the Butt," and I was like, it's like I don't remember this one.
15 minutes later, pop gold.
I was like, I've not done much with that yet, but I mean, that's also been useful for the whole like trying to remember songs from dreams thing. Like,
yeah.
like there's some funny voice memos of me like really tired, obviously just woke up, but like grab my phone and I'm like, I've been eating lots of peanut butter, yeah. Which got turned into a Somnia song. There was a song that in my dream the lyric was I've been eating lots of peanut butter, but we thought maybe we'd change the lyrics.
So, you've been working on Bye Bye Birdie 4, is that correct?
Well, I did have a scene. Erica and I did a acoustic Somnia song, and Erica's been in every episode of Bye Bye Birdie as the Frost Queen, and so I got to play like. I'm not really sure what my relationship to her is, but I'm the Prince of Freeze. I don't think she's my mother though, so I think maybe I'm just from a different kingdom.
I see.
And we're like,
You're also like Frost royalty.
yeah, it was pretty fun. I got to play kind of like a snooty, unlikable member of the royal family who like reluctantly gives advice to the
Spoiler
Muppet
alert.
protagonists. Oh no.
Well, this will likely be out after.
Except I was talking spoiler alert for me because I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, right.
There's no I didn't reveal any important plot points, just my character.
What is it like working with Kevin when he's directing and behind the camera and everything?
It's really fun. It's really relaxed. He's got a real like we'll just kind of see what happens kind of attitude about making videos. Managed to turn that into some really classic moments, both in like his music videos that he's directed and the Bye Bye Birdie series.
Yeah.
Also just an impressive watching how he just kind of like picked it up and learned it himself, and seeing his video skills like progress and get really good over the few years that he's been doing Bye Bye Birdie.
I think that my favorite kind of punk is punks making not punk things. Like, I know you're a punk, and I'm a punk, and, like, I don't think anyone who sees me now thinks that I'm a punk. They're like, there's a punk walking down the street, but I am.
I mean, punk wasn't always something that had, like, as specific of an aesthetic, a musical aesthetic as it does now, you know? Like, the stuff that was punk in the inception of punk was all very different sounding. Like, include, you know, Television and
The Talking
Blondie
Talking
and the
Heads.
Talking Heads, like, alongside, like, the Ramones, or even, like, the Clash. Like, some of their stuff sounds very punk, and some of it not at all. Yeah, what makes something punk? I don't totally know. Like there's this band from Athens, Georgia. They were also on Planet X Records called the Carrie Nations. I was like, they're an amazing punk band, but they don't sound like a band that's trying to sound like a punk band. But they're all punks. Like, I think that punk, you know, traditionally is kind of just outsider music. That can mean a lot of different things. That can mean like you feel like you're an outsider in like a patriarchal capitalist world, and so you're like an anarcho-feminist. But I mean, there's also people who are like, I'm an outsider from the liberal media, and I'm like a Republican punk, you know?
Does that actually exist? Is that something you've experienced? Or?
Yeah,
Oh.
that exists. I mean, it's fortunately the minority, but like,
Right.
yeah, I think though that like, you know, the kind of punk that I identify with, a lot of it is about its intention, and a lot of it is about like the DIY ethic, like however you want to define that. And a lot of people that I know who like make indie rock and make indie pop and regular pop, and maybe they don't even want to be called punk bands. Maybe it's just a punk who's singer-songwriter. You know, sometimes I think that way about Spoonboy. I mean, Spoonboy has some traditional punk aesthetic to it, but not so much that it would always be identified as punk if you just saw me playing an acoustic guitar. Does it really matter that it's categorized one way or another?
Yes,
Yeah.
to some people it matters a lot.
Yeah. And still playing punk bands. Max Levine Ensemble.
Right.
Still going strong. We have a
14
new
years.
record. Gonna be done soon.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Somnia, pretty much a pop punk band, though sometimes it leans way in the pop direction.
All right, y'all. Thank you for listening. Thank you for David for sitting in with us. If you're curious about what he's up to, just Google him. Spoonboy, Broken Up or Not, will show up. When Somnia's album drops, we will be way excited to promote it on here and listen to it. We hope that you were in love with Olympia Pop Rocks, you and us sitting in a tree, that kind of in love. If you want to hear more of us, you can and should subscribe on iTunes, and it makes us look so good when you rate us. You can like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter. But until then, we'll see you in 2 weeks when we discuss downtown Olympia.